In 1985, Michael Jackson performed a move on stage that physicists said was impossible. He leaned forward 45 degrees, held the position for several seconds, then returned upright as if gravity didn't exist. What audiences didn't know was that this wasn't just choreography. It was the result of a secret invention that took 4 years to perfect and nearly killed him during testing. If you've ever wondered how Michael defied the laws of physics, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments if you've tried this move at home. Trust me, you're about to understand why it's impossible. The story begins in 1985 backstage at Wembley Stadium during the Bad World Tour. Michael Jackson had just finished performing Beat It when something extraordinary happened. As he took his final bow, his shoe got caught on a loose cable running across the stage floor. Instead of falling forward like any normal person would, Michael somehow managed to lean at an impossible angle, hold the position, and then smoothly return upright. The audience erupted, thinking it was part of the choreography. But Michael knew he had stumbled onto something revolutionary. That night, alone in his hotel suite at the Dorchester, Michael spent hours trying to recreate what had happened. He would lean forward until he felt himself about to fall, then try to hold the position. Every time gravity won. Every time he had to step forward or fall flat on his face. But Michael Jackson was not a man who accepted limitations. If he had accidentally defied gravity once, he was determined to do it again on purpose. The problem was simple in theory, but seemingly impossible in practice. The human body's center of gravity is located roughly in the lower torso. When you lean forward, that center of gravity moves beyond your base of support, your feet. Once that happens, you either have to step forward or you fall. It's basic physics, it's unavoidable, or so everyone thought. Michael became obsessed with understanding the science behind what had happened. He didn't just want to recreate the move, he wanted to master it completely. He began studying physics textbooks, learning about balance points, leverage, and gravitational forces. He filled notebooks with sketches and calculations, trying to understand exactly what combination of factors had allowed him to achieve the impossible, even if only for a moment. His personal library at Neverland began to include works by Newton, Einstein, and modern physicists who studied human biomechanics. Michael consulted with biomechanics experts from Cambridge University, physicists from Imperial College London, even aerospace engineers who worked on satellite technology. Dr. Sarah Richardson, a leading biomechanics researcher at Cambridge, later recalled her meeting with Michael as one of the most unusual consultations of her career. He came to my lab with detailed questions about center of gravity and balance mechanics, she remembered. He understood the physics better than many of my graduate students. But when I explained why what he wanted to do was impossible, he just smiled and said, "We'll see about that." The experts all told him the same thing. What he wanted to do was physically impossible. The human body simply couldn't maintain that position without external support. Professor James Mitchell from Imperial College's physics department spent 3 hours with Michael, using computer models to demonstrate why a 45-degree lean was biomechanically impossible. "I showed him the calculations," Mitchell later said. "The forces involved, the stress on the ankles, the center of gravity displacement. It was all there in black and white. But Michael had this look in his eyes like he was already solving a puzzle I couldn't even see." The breakthrough came when Michael was watching his own children play in the gardens at Neverland. Prince and Blanket were playing a game where they would lean against each other back to back, then try to walk forward while maintaining contact. Michael noticed that as long as they maintained that connection point, they could achieve angles that would be impossible individually. That's when inspiration struck. What if the support didn't have to be visible? What if he could create a connection between his body and the stage that the audience couldn't see? Michael immediately called his longtime collaborator, Marcus Reynolds, the brilliant costume designer who had created many of his most iconic outfits. Their conversation that day would lead to one of the most closely guarded secrets in entertainment history. Reynolds had worked with everyone from David Bowie to Madonna, but he had never encountered a challenge quite like this. "Michael called me at 2 a.m., Reynolds recalled years later. He was practically vibrating with excitement. He said, "Marcus, I need you to help me break the laws of physics." I thought he was joking until he explained what he had in mind. I told him it was impossible, and he said, "That's exactly why we're going to do it." Reynolds had built a reputation in the industry for creating costumes that seemed to defy logic. Suits that could change color under stage lights, jackets that appeared to float during quick costume changes, shoes that made no sound on any surface. But this was different. This wasn't about creating an illusion of impossibility. This was about achieving actual impossibility. The collaboration between Michael and Reynolds became an obsession for both men. They would spend entire nights in Reynolds' workshop, surrounded by prototypes, sketches, and failed experiments. Reynolds' background in mechanical engineering, which he had studied before switching to costume design, proved invaluable. He understood both the artistic vision Michael was pursuing and the technical challenges they faced. Michael didn't just want to lean forward, Reynolds explained. He wanted to create a moment that would make people question reality itself. That required perfection in every detail. The first prototypes were crude and dangerous. Reynolds experimented with magnetic systems, thinking they could embed powerful magnets in Michael's shoes and corresponding magnets in the stage floor. The early tests were disasters. The magnetic pull was either too weak to support Michael's weight or so strong that he couldn't detach his feet from the floor. During one particularly violent test at a private facility in Surrey, Michael was yanked forward so hard by the magnets that he crashed into a padded wall and needed 4 stitches above his left eyebrow. But failure only motivated Michael more. He and Reynolds worked in absolute secrecy, building a private testing facility in a converted aircraft hangar outside London. They experimented with cable systems, hydraulic mechanisms, even pressurized air supports hidden beneath stage floors. Each system had fatal flaws. Cables were visible to audiences even from the back rows. Hydraulics created noise that would interfere with the music. Air systems were unreliable and posed serious safety risks. The testing process was dangerous and often painful. Michael insisted on trying every prototype himself, despite Reynolds' concerns for his safety. During one test with a pneumatic system, a sudden pressure release sent Michael flying backward into a stack of equipment cases. He emerged with bruised ribs and a cut on his hand, but his first words were, "Did you get that on video? I want to see what went wrong." Another test with an early version of the cable system left him suspended 3 feet off the ground when the release mechanism failed. It took 20 minutes to cut him down, during which he remained perfectly calm, even asking Reynolds to hand him a notepad so he could sketch improvements to the design. The secrecy surrounding their work was extreme. They used code names for everything, referring to the project as Operation Gravity in their notes. Only 3 people knew the full scope of what they were attempting: Michael, Reynolds, and Dr. Elizabeth Carter, a mechanical engineer from Oxford who had been brought in to consult on the more complex engineering challenges. Carter had signed multiple non-disclosure agreements and was paid a substantial fee for her discretion. Even their suppliers didn't know what they were building. Components were ordered from different companies, with each vendor believing they were creating parts for stage lighting or sound equipment. The solution, when it finally came, was elegantly simple and ingeniously hidden. Reynolds designed what appeared to be an ordinary pair of patent leather dress shoes, but embedded in the heel of each shoe was a specially designed locking mechanism. This mechanism was precisely angled to catch a small 2-centimeter steel anchor that could be hidden in the stage floor. The anchor was thin enough to be virtually invisible to audiences, even those in the front row, appearing as nothing more than a tiny imperfection in the stage surface. But the real genius was in the engineering of the locking mechanism itself. It wasn't just a simple hook. Reynolds had created a sophisticated tension-based system that would engage automatically when Michael stepped back into position, hold firmly during the lean using the performer's own body weight as the locking force, and release smoothly when he shifted his weight forward to return upright. The entire system was balanced so perfectly that Michael could control it entirely through subtle movements of his feet and shifts in his body weight. The first successful test took place on a Thursday evening in February 1988. Michael stepped back, felt the mechanism engage with a barely audible click, took a deep breath, and leaned forward. For the first time in 4 years of trying, he achieved the impossible. He was leaning at a 45-degree angle, his body defying every law of physics that audiences understood, held perfectly still for 7 full seconds. When he returned upright, He looked at Reynolds with tears streaming down his face. They had done it. They had created magic. The moment was captured on a single camera that Reynolds had set up to document their progress. The footage, which still exists in a private archive, shows Michael's face transform from concentration to disbelief to pure joy in the span of those 7 seconds. "We did it," he whispered, then louder. "We actually did it." Reynolds later described it as one of the most emotional moments of his career. 4 years of failure, of being told it was impossible, of injuries and setbacks, and suddenly there was Michael, defying gravity like it was nothing. "I knew we had created something that would change entertainment forever, but the celebration was brief." Michael's perfectionism kicked in immediately. "It's not enough," he said, reviewing the footage. "It has to be smoother, more natural." The audience can't suspect anything mechanical is happening. They have to believe it's pure artistry. This began what Reynolds called the refinement obsession, a period where they tested thousands of variations, adjusting angles, timing, and mechanical tolerances until every aspect of the move was flawless. But Michael wasn't satisfied with just making the move possible. He wanted to make it perfect, supernatural, unforgettable. They spent months refining every detail. The engagement had to be silent and instantaneous. The lean had to look effortless and otherworldly. The release had to be smooth enough that audiences would never suspect mechanical assistance. Michael practiced the move thousands of times, developing the precise foot movements and body positioning that would make the impossible look inevitable. The public debut came during the Smooth Criminal segment of Michael's live performances in 1988. Michael had decided that this move needed a perfect setting, a moment of pure dramatic impact. As the music reached its climax during a show at the Tokyo Dome, Michael and his backup dancers all leaned forward in perfect synchronization, holding the pose as 55,000 spectators gasped in collective disbelief. The move lasted only a few seconds, but it became one of the most iconic moments in entertainment history. What audiences didn't know was that they were witnessing the culmination of years of secret engineering and countless hours of practice. Every dancer had been fitted with custom versions of the special shoes. Every stage had been precisely modified with hidden anchors positioned exactly where each performer would be standing. The timing had to be perfect. Too early and the mechanism might not engage properly. Too late and the music would move past the dramatic moment. The backup dancers had undergone months of specialized training to master the move. Unlike Michael, who understood every aspect of the technology, the dancers were taught through a carefully designed program that focused on muscle memory and precise positioning. Each dancer spent weeks learning to step backward into the exact position where their personal anchor would be located. They practiced the lean using safety harnesses until the motion became completely natural. Maria Santos, one of Michael's backup dancers during the Bad World Tour, later revealed some details about the training process. "We knew something special was happening, but Michael kept the technical details secret even from us," she recalled. "We would rehearse for hours, practicing the exact footwork, the timing, the angle of the lean." Michael was incredibly demanding about the precision. If someone was off by even a few centimeters, we would start over. The dancers were told they were learning a revolutionary new choreography technique that required absolute precision in positioning and timing. The psychological preparation was as intense as the physical training. Michael worked with each dancer individually to help them overcome the natural fear response that occurs when leaning beyond the point of balance. "Your brain is going to tell you to step forward," he would tell them. "You have to trust the process, trust the technique, and trust that you won't fall." Some dancers struggled with this mental aspect more than others, requiring additional sessions with sports psychologists who specialized in helping athletes overcome fear-based performance blocks. The behind-the-scenes preparation for each performance was extraordinary. Michael's crew would arrive hours before showtime to install the hidden anchors. Each anchor had to be positioned within millimeter precision. The stage floor had to be tested to ensure it could support the lateral forces created by multiple performers leaning simultaneously. Backup anchors were installed in case of equipment failure, though Michael's perfectionism meant they were rarely needed. The installation process was like a military operation, A specialized team of 3 technicians, led by Chief Engineer Robert Clark, would arrive at each venue with equipment disguised as standard stage lighting cases. Clark had been personally trained by Reynolds and was one of only 5 people worldwide who fully understood the anchor installation process. The team would use laser measuring devices to ensure perfect positioning, working from detailed blueprints that showed the exact placement for each performer. Security around the installation was unprecedented. The stage area would be completely cleared of all venue staff and other crew members during anchor installation. Michael's security team would establish a perimeter, telling venue management that they were installing proprietary audio equipment that required absolute confidentiality due to competitive concerns. The actual installation took approximately 4 hours per venue, with each anchor requiring precise drilling, calibration, and testing. The anchors themselves were marvels of engineering. Made from a specialized titanium alloy, each one was custom manufactured by a precision engineering firm in Switzerland that believed they were creating components for aerospace applications. The anchors were designed to withstand forces of up to 800 pounds at the precise angle required for the lean, but would break away safely if excessive lateral force was applied, preventing injury to the performer. Each anchor cost approximately $3,000 to manufacture, and Michael's team would install between 6 and 12 anchors per performance, depending on the number of dancers and the choreography requirements. But the most incredible part was Michael's performance during the lean itself. While audiences saw supernatural grace, Michael was actually managing an incredibly complex physical maneuver. He had to step back precisely, ensuring both feet engaged properly with their respective anchors. He had to control his breathing and maintain perfect posture while fighting against gravity. He had to time his return to upright position with the musical crescendo, and he had to make it all look effortless, as if he were simply choosing to ignore the laws of physics. The move became Michael's signature, appearing in live performances of Smooth Criminal around the world. Each venue presented unique challenges. Outdoor stages had to be specially constructed to hide the mechanism. Indoor arenas required careful planning to ensure the anchors could be installed without damaging permanent flooring. Some venues initially refused to allow the modifications, not understanding why Michael needed such specific stage preparations. His team learned to carry portable stage sections that could be quickly installed over existing floors. Other performers tried desperately to recreate the move. Videos surfaced of celebrities attempting the lean and falling flat on their faces. Dance instructors created tutorials explaining why the move was impossible. Physics professors used Michael's lean as a classroom example of center of gravity principles. But no one could replicate it because no one knew the secret. The mystery only added to Michael's legend as someone who could transcend the normal limitations of human performance. The attempts by other performers to recreate the lean became a source of both amusement and concern for Michael and his team. Prince, Michael's longtime rival, was reportedly obsessed with figuring out the secret behind the move. According to Reynolds, Prince hired a team of engineers and spent over $100,000 trying to develop his own version of the technology. The attempts failed because they focused on recreating the visual effect without understanding the underlying biomechanics and precision engineering required. Madonna also attempted to incorporate a similar move into her performances, working with some of the most advanced stage designers in the industry. Her team came closer than most others to understanding the principle, developing a magnetic system that could create a 25-degree lean. However, the system was bulky, unreliable, and created obvious modifications to the stage that made the illusion unconvincing. After 6 months of development and testing, Madonna abandoned the project. Even more seriously, several amateur dancers were injured attempting to recreate the move without any mechanical assistance. Emergency rooms began reporting cases of performers who had attempted extreme leans and suffered ankle injuries, back strains, and in one case, a concussion from falling forward. Michael was deeply troubled by these reports and considered releasing a public statement explaining that the move required special equipment, but his legal team advised against it, concerned that any acknowledgement of the technology would compromise the illusion and potentially expose trade secrets. The mystery deepened when Michael began performing variations of the move. Sometimes he would lean at different angles, adjusting the mechanism to create 30 degrees or 50 degrees leans depending on the dramatic requirement. Sometimes he would hold the position longer, extending the moment of impossibility to build suspense. Sometimes he would move his arms or head while maintaining the impossible posture, adding flourishes that made the physics even more bewildering. Each variation required months of practice and precise mechanical adjustments. The most dangerous moment came during a 1993 concert in Munich. A malfunction in the stage mechanism caused one of Michael's shoes to stick in the engaged position. He was locked in the lean with no way to return upright. For 45 intense seconds, Michael maintained his composure while his crew frantically worked to free him. The audience thought it was an extended artistic choice, but backstage, chaos erupted as engineers tried to resolve the crisis. Michael finally freed himself through a combination of precise foot movements and sheer willpower. But the incident led to extensive safety modifications. The technology evolved throughout Michael's career. Later versions included emergency release mechanisms and wireless monitoring systems that allowed technicians to track the status of each shoe in real time. The shoes themselves became more sophisticated, incorporating lightweight titanium alloys and improved ergonomics. Michael worked with Formula One engineers to optimize the weight distribution and balance points, applying racing technology to stage performance. Marcus Reynolds revealed years later that he had created over 50 different versions of the special shoes during Michael's career. Each pair was custom fitted and balanced for Michael's specific anatomy. The shoes were so precisely calibrated that no one else could wear them effectively. Even Michael's backup dancers had their own custom-fitted versions, each adjusted for their individual body mechanics and performance style. The manufacturing process was so secretive that each component was made by different companies, with no single manufacturer understanding the complete system. The secret was so closely guarded that most of Michael's own crew didn't know how the move worked. Camera operators were told to avoid certain angles that might reveal the mechanism. Lighting designers were instructed to create shadows that would further obscure the foot positioning. Even many of the backup dancers didn't fully understand the technology they were using. They were simply taught the exact steps and positioning required, told it was a special choreography technique that required precise placement. Michael obtained patents for the shoe mechanism in 1993, describing it as a method and means for creating anti-gravity illusion. The patent drawings show the intricate engineering involved, but even today, few people realize that these documents exist. The patents were filed under Reynolds' name at Michael's request, ensuring that the secret would remain hidden even in public records. The filing described the invention in deliberately vague terms, focusing on the artistic application rather than the mechanical details. The move appeared in Michael's final planned performances for This Is It. Rehearsal footage shows Michael at age 50 still executing the lean with the same supernatural grace he had possessed decades earlier. The mechanism had been updated with modern materials and engineering, but the fundamental genius of the design remained unchanged. Michael was planning to perform the move for a new generation of fans who would experience the same sense of wonder that had captivated audiences for over 20 years. After Michael's passing, several museums and collectors acquired pairs of his special shoes, but without the corresponding stage mechanisms and Michael's precise technique, they remained simply expensive artifacts. The Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. has a pair on display with a placard that mentions the innovative footwear design, but doesn't reveal the full truth of how they worked. Visitors can see the shoes, but the magic remains hidden. Today, modern performers still can't recreate Michael's anti-gravity lean. CGI and special effects can simulate the move for films and videos, but live performance of the authentic lean remains impossible without Michael's secret technology. Dance schools teach approximations of the move, but nothing comes close to the dramatic 45-degree angle that Michael achieved. The physics simply don't allow it. The move has inspired countless imitations, tributes, and attempts at explanation. YouTube is filled with videos of people trying to recreate the lean, usually ending in painful falls. Physics teachers use Michael's move to demonstrate principles of balance and center of gravity. Engineers study the patents to understand the mechanical innovation involved. But perhaps the most remarkable thing about Michael's anti-gravity lean is that it perfectly embodied his approach to entertainment. It wasn't enough to sing beautifully or dance skillfully. Michael wanted to create moments of pure impossibility experiences that would make audiences question reality itself. The lean was physics and poetry combined, engineering and artistry unified in a single impossible moment. It represented everything that made Michael Jackson extraordinary: his refusal to accept limitations, his willingness to invest years in perfecting a single moment, his collaboration with brilliant technicians and designers, his ability to hide incredible complexity behind apparent simplicity, and most importantly, his dedication to creating magic that would inspire wonder for generations. Every time someone attempts the lean and fails, they're discovering what Michael always knew: that true magic requires not just talent and vision, but also innovation, preparation, and the courage to defy the impossible. The anti-gravity lean wasn't just a dance move. It was a perfect metaphor for Michael Jackson himself, a man who refused to be bound by the limitations that constrain ordinary people, who found ways to transcend gravity itself in pursuit of perfect artistry. The anti-gravity lean remains one of the most incredible innovations in entertainment history, a perfect fusion of physics, engineering, and pure artistry that only Michael Jackson could have conceived and executed. It stands as proof that with enough creativity, determination, and technical innovation, even the laws of physics can become tools for creating magic,